Lieutenant James Miller wiped sweat from his brow as he moved carefully through the abandoned outpost. The air inside was stale, a mix of dust and something he couldn't quite place. His boots made hollow sounds against the metal floor as he swept his light from corner to corner. Section 4 clear, he reported into his comm. Static answered him. The thick walls of the old station blocked signals. It didn't matter. This was just a routine sweep. Earth's coalition forces had been on Vega 9 for 3 years now. The planet sat in the uncomfortable space between human territory and the vast celestial empire. Neither side claimed it officially, but neither would let the other have it. So soldiers like James patrolled, watched, and waited. The outpost had been empty for months. At least, it was supposed to be. A sound caught his attention. A soft scraping from behind a sealed door. James raised his weapon, moving on instinct honed by years of training. Coalition forces. Identify yourself, he called out. No answer came, but the scraping continued. James pressed the door control. Nothing happened. The power had been cut long ago. He wedged his fingers into the small gap and pulled, muscles straining until the door slid open with a groan. Light from his helmet beam fell on a huddled figure in the corner. James stepped closer, then froze. It wasn't human. The being looked almost female, with a slender form and features that seemed both alien and strangely beautiful. Her skin had a faint blue glow that pulsed weakly. Most striking were her eyes, large with pupils that reflected his light like mirrors. She was clearly wounded. Dark fluid pooled beneath her, and her breathing came in short, labored gasps. I need medical at my position, James said into his dead comm, forgetting it wouldn't transmit. He knelt beside the alien woman, unsure how to help. She raised a trembling hand toward him. James hesitated only a moment before taking it. Her skin felt cool and somehow electric, like touching water with a mild current running through it. Who are you? What happened? He asked. The alien woman's lips moved, forming words in a language his standard translator couldn't process. Her voice was musical, each word flowing into the next. She reached into the folds of her strange, shimmering clothing and pulled out something that caught the light. A pendant hung from a chain made of an unfamiliar metal. It was circular with intricate patterns etched across its surface. At its center sat a stone that seemed to contain swirling galaxies within it. The alien woman pressed it into his palm, closing his fingers around it with surprising strength. Her eyes locked with his, and she spoke again, this time slow and deliberate, as if willing him to understand. Then her hand went limp. The blue glow of her skin dimmed and faded entirely. James sat back, stunned. The pendant felt warm against his skin, almost alive. His comm crackled suddenly to life. Lieutenant Miller, report. Have you completed your sweep? James looked down at the pendant, then at the alien woman's body. Something deep inside told him to keep the object hidden. Before he could question the impulse, he slipped it into his pocket. Miller here, he answered. The outpost is clear, but you need to send a team. I found something. As other soldiers arrived, James stood aside, watching them examine the alien woman. Questions flew around him. What species was she? Why was she here? What had happened? But James remained silent about the pendant now hidden against his chest, wondering why its weight felt like both a burden and a gift. James tossed in his narrow bunk, sheets twisted around his legs. The same dream again. Vast swirling galaxies, ancient cities built of crystal, and voices speaking in a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. He woke with a gasp, his hand automatically reaching for the pendant hidden in a small pouch sewn into his undershirt. It was warm to the touch, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. 3 weeks had passed since he found the dying alien woman, and each night the dreams grew stronger. Lights, he mumbled, and the harsh overhead lamp of his quarters flickered on. The clock showed 300 hours. No point trying to sleep now. The military base on Vega 9 never truly slept. Outside his window, Patrol transports hummed past. Soldiers changed shifts with quiet efficiency. James splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. His skin looked pale. "You look like hell, Miller." Captain Reed's voice made James stand straighter as he entered the mess hall for breakfast. Reed was a hard man who ran his base with rigid discipline. "Just tired, sir," James replied, filling his tray with the standard military breakfast, protein cubes and synthetic coffee. Reed studied him. "The alien encounter bothering you?" James kept his face neutral. "No, sir." "Good, because that matter is closed." Reed lowered his voice. "Those intelligence boys finally left yesterday. They're calling it an isolated incident. The body's been shipped off-world for study." James nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He hadn't told anyone about the pendant. After finding the alien, he'd been questioned for hours by stern-faced intelligence officers. They'd searched his gear, but hadn't found the pendant. Something had made James hide it, though he couldn't explain why even to himself. "You're distracted, Miller," Reed continued. "Your squad leader says you've missed calls during drills. That's not like you." "Won't happen again, sir." Reed's eyes narrowed. "See that it doesn't. We can't afford mistakes here. The Empire watches every move we make." Later that day, as James led his squad on a perimeter check, the pendant grew suddenly hot against his chest. He stumbled, dropping to one knee. "Lieutenant, you okay?" asked Private Gomes. Before James could answer, he saw it. A flash of blue light at the edge of the forest. The same blue as the alien woman's skin. When he blinked, it was gone. That evening, Captain Reed called him to the command center. "Miller, effective immediately, you're being reassigned to Outpost Delta." James stared in disbelief. Outpost Delta was the most isolated station in their territory, little more than a monitoring shed on the frontier edge. "Sir, may I ask why?" Reed's expression hardened. "Because I need alert soldiers, not ones who collapse during routine patrols. Consider this a chance to clear your head. You leave at 600. As James packed his few belongings that night, a knock came at his door. He quickly tucked the pendant away before opening it. A woman in civilian clothes stood there. She was tall with dark hair pulled back tightly. "Lieutenant Miller, I'm Dr. Tala Reyes, xenolinguist. I need 5 minutes of your time." James hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. "I was studying the symbols found on the alien's clothing," she said quietly. "But intelligence confiscated my notes yesterday." "Why tell me?" Tala's eyes met his. "Because you were there when she died. And because my security clearance shows that certain details were left out of your official report." James felt the pendant grow warm again, as if responding to her words. "What details?" he asked cautiously. "You tell me, Lieutenant," Tala replied. "What did she give you before she died?" The small transport shuddered as it landed at Outpost Delta. James stepped out into the cold morning air, his breath forming clouds. The outpost was even worse than he had imagined. A cluster of prefab buildings surrounded by sensor arrays and a single defensive turret. "Welcome to nowhere," said the outpost commander, a weathered sergeant named Dias. "Your quarters are in Building 3. Not much to do here except watch the border and try not to freeze." James spent his first 3 days monitoring sensors that rarely showed anything besides local wildlife. On the 4th day, a civilian transport arrived. Tala Reyes stepped out, carrying a small travel bag. Her eyes met James with quiet determination. "What are you doing here?" he asked when they were alone in the outpost's tiny mess hall. "I requested a field assignment to study frontier languages." She glanced around before lowering her voice. "But really, I came to continue our conversation." James hesitated, then reached under his collar and pulled out the pendant. In the dim light of the outpost, its markings seemed to shift and change. Tala's eyes widened. "I knew it. May I?" she asked, holding out her hand. When James placed the pendant in her palm, Nothing happened. But when he touched it while it rested in her hand, the center stone glowed with inner light. "It's bonded to you," she whispered, "just like the old stories." "What stories?" "There are legends about a race called the Luminary," Tala explained, opening her datapad to show him ancient texts. "They were said to pass down their knowledge through objects that bonded with chosen successors." That night, Tala worked to translate the dying words of the alien woman. She recorded James speaking the phrases from his dreams, analyzing the patterns. "This language hasn't been spoken in thousands of years," she said, excitement making her eyes bright. "What you're carrying isn't just jewelry. It's what the ancient texts call a blood key, a genetic inheritance device." "What does that mean?" James asked. "It means it's changing you, connecting with your DNA. The dreams you're having, their memories, her memories, and the memories of all who carried the blood key before her." James felt a chill. Why me? Why would she give this to a human soldier? The final message I've been able to translate suggests she was being hunted. She called herself the Last Guardian. She chose you because you were there, and because she had no choice. Her people, the Luminary, are nearly extinct. James paced the small room. "This is crazy. I should turn this thing into command." "No." Tala grabbed his arm. "The military would lock it away, study it. This is living history, James. The Luminary were peacekeepers before they vanished. They achieved what no other species has: true harmony between worlds." That night, the dream was clearer than ever before. James saw vast ships with blue glowing engines. He witnessed meetings between species so different they seemed impossible, and he felt the weight of responsibility carried by generations of guardians. He woke to find the pendant pulsing with steady light. When he touched it, knowledge flowed into him like water. "I can see it all now," he told Tala the next morning, his voice hushed with wonder. The Luminary weren't just peacekeepers. They were guardians of balance. They had technology beyond anything we can imagine, but they used it to heal, not destroy. Tala looked at him with concern. "What else did you learn?" "I know who hunted them to extinction," James said grimly. "The Celestial Empire. They've been eliminating the Luminary for centuries, trying to erase them from history." As if summoned by his words, alarms began to blare throughout the outpost. "Proximity alert," called Sergeant Dias. "Unidentified ship approaching fast from Empire space." James and Tala exchanged looks of understanding. "They found us," she whispered. "We need to move. Now." James grabbed his emergency pack from under his bunk. Years of military training kicked in as he assessed their options. The outpost's intercom crackled. "Unidentified vessel. This is Coalition Outpost Delta. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." Through the small window, James saw a sleek black ship descending toward the landing pad. Its design was unlike the blocky Coalition vessels, or even the curved ships of the Celestial Empire. This was something else entirely. "The back exit," James told Tala. "Through the supply room." They slipped out just as the black ship landed. James led them to a maintenance shed 50 meters from the main building. Through its dirty window, they watched 6 figures emerge from the ship. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Those aren't regular Empire soldiers," Tala whispered. "They're Void Hunters, special forces trained to track and eliminate enemies of the Empire." "How do you know that?" James asked. "I've studied more than just languages. The Empire doesn't officially acknowledge their existence." The hunters spread out with practiced precision. Their leader handed something to Sergeant Dias, who pointed toward the building they had just left. "They're looking for us," James said. "For this." He touched the pendant beneath his shirt. The shed had an emergency snowcraft stored for patrols. James quickly activated it, overriding the security protocols with his officer codes. "This is stealing military property," Tala noted as they climbed aboard. "Better than the alternative." James gunned the engine, and they shot out from behind the shed, heading toward the dense forest that marked the beginning of the unpatrolled wilderness. Shouts erupted behind them, followed by the whine of energy weapons. A shot hit a tree near them, turning it instantly to ash. "Those aren't coalition weapons," Tala shouted over the engine's roar. James pushed the snowcraft to its limits, weaving between trees. The pendant against his chest grew hot, almost burning. Suddenly, knowledge flooded his mind. Terrain maps, hidden paths, a place of safety. "Hold on," he called, making a sharp turn to the east, away from coalition territory and deeper into the frontier. They traveled for hours, the hunters falling behind, but never quite disappearing from their trail. As night fell, they reached a frozen lake. "We can't cross that," Tala said. "The ice won't hold the craft." James shut down the engine. "We're not crossing. We're going under." He led her to the lake's edge, where a seemingly solid rock face met the water. Guided by knowledge from the pendant, James pressed his hand against a specific pattern in the stone. A hidden door slid open, revealing a tunnel. "How did you know?" Tala asked, amazed. "The pendant. It's sharing more memories now, faster than before." The luminary built safe houses throughout the galaxy. This is one of them. Inside, ancient lights flickered to life, responding to James's presence. The tunnel led to a small chamber with basic supplies and technology, unlike anything Tala had seen. "We should be safe here for now," James said, collapsing onto a bench. "But we're officially deserters. Coalition will be looking for us too." Tala activated her datapad. "It's worse than that. Look." The screen showed an emergency broadcast. It displayed their faces with the words, "Wanted, Lieutenant James Miller and Dr. Tala Reyes, suspected of treason and theft of classified alien technology. Approach with extreme caution." They've allied with the Empire, James realized. Politics over truth. "What do we do now?" Tala asked. James touched the pendant, which glowed softly in the dim chamber. "The pendant is showing me a place, a sanctuary where the last luminary gathered. If we can reach it, we might find answers. Maybe even help." "Where is it?" "That's the problem," James said grimly. "It's in unmapped space, beyond both Coalition and Empire territory, and we need a real ship to get there." Outside, in the darkness, lights moved across the frozen landscape. The hunters hadn't given up. 3 days of hiding, stealing, and running had left James and Tala exhausted. They had managed to board a cargo ship at a frontier trading post by bribing a captain who asked no questions. Now they stood on the bridge of the small, battered vessel as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "This is it," James said, looking at the navigation screen. "These are the coordinates from the pendant." Before them floated a small, unassuming planetoid. Its surface appeared barren, with no signs of life or civilization. "Are you sure?" the captain asked, scratching his beard. "Ain't nothing out here worth the fuel I burned getting to it." James nodded. "This is the place. Take us closer." As they approached, the pendant began to pulse with bright blue light. Suddenly, the planetoid's surface seemed to shimmer and change. What had appeared as barren rock now revealed vast crystal structures and elegant towers, hidden before by some kind of cloaking technology. "What in all the stars?" the captain whispered. A beam of light shot from the surface, scanning their ship. James felt the pendant grow hot against his skin. "We're being scanned," Tala said. "They're looking for the blood key." The light vanished, and a moment later, a voice spoke through the ship's communication system. It wasn't human, but somehow James understood it perfectly. "Guardian identified. Approach landing pad 3 for welcome." The ship landed in a crystal docking bay that sealed itself after they entered. James paid the captain the rest of their credits to wait 3 days for their return, though the man looked deeply uncomfortable about staying. When James and Tala stepped off the ship, they were met by what appeared to be glowing figures of light. Only as they approached did James realize these weren't living beings at all, but advanced holographic projections. "Welcome, Guardian," said the nearest figure, its voice musical and calm. "I am Keeper, the caretaker eye of this sanctuary. We have waited 247 standard years for a blood key to return to us." The hologram led them through corridors of crystal and metal, unlike any material James had seen. The walls themselves seemed alive, changing colors subtly as they passed. "This place is incredible," Tala whispered. "The technology is beyond anything in the Coalition or Empire." They entered a vast circular chamber where the floor displayed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light pulsed across it. "This is the Luminary Archive," Keeper explained. "The complete history and knowledge of our creators." "Your creators?" James asked. "You're not Luminary yourself." "The Luminary created us to preserve their knowledge after they were gone. I am but an echo of their wisdom." The hologram gestured to the pendant. "May I see the blood key?" James hesitated, then removed the pendant and held it out. The hologram passed a hand over it, and the center stone blazed with light. "The bonding is nearly complete," Keeper said. "Soon you will have full access to all Luminary knowledge." "Who were they really?" Tala asked. "Why were they hunted?" Keeper waved a hand, and the galaxy map zoomed in on a particular region. The Luminary were peacekeepers who maintained balance between younger species for millennia. Their technology focused on healing, restoration, and communication between worlds. The map showed beautiful green planets and thriving civilizations. Then the Celestial Empire rose to power, Keeper continued, and the map shifted to show planets turning red, then gray. They discovered how to corrupt Luminary technology into weapons. They used these weapons to destroy rivals, blaming the destruction on the Luminary themselves. James touched the pendant, feeling its warmth. "And the woman who gave me this?" "The last royal guardian," Keeper said sadly. "She carried our final hope. The complete, uncorrupted Luminary database. The blood key you wear contains everything our people ever were." "Why choose me?" James asked. "A human soldier." "The blood key does not recognize species," Keeper replied. "It recognizes potential. Something in you was worthy. Now you must decide what to do with this inheritance." The hologram gestured to a doorway that slowly opened. "Rest. Learn. The genetic bonding will complete soon. Then you will face your choice." James sat cross-legged in a crystal chamber, the pendant floating before him in a beam of blue light. For 3 days, he had immersed himself in the Luminary archives, absorbing knowledge that spanned thousands of years. His mind expanded to hold concepts and technologies once unimaginable to him. "Your genetic bonding is complete," Keeper announced, its holographic form shimmering into existence. "You are now the last guardian of Luminary knowledge." James opened his eyes. The room around him seemed different now. He could see energy patterns flowing through the walls, understand the purpose of every curve and angle in the architecture. "It's overwhelming," he said quietly. Tala entered the chamber, carrying data tablets she had been studying. "James, are you all right? Your eyes. What about them?" She held up a reflective panel. James saw that his irises now contained faint blue swirls, like tiny galaxies. "A side effect of the bonding," Keeper explained. "Your DNA has been subtly altered to interface with Luminary technology." James stood, feeling both stronger and somehow lighter than before. "I understand everything now. The Luminary weren't just peacekeepers, they were guardians of life itself. Their technology could heal entire planets, bring species back from extinction, even calm the rage of dying stars. And now you must choose what to do with this knowledge," Keeper said solemnly. Tala activated one of her tablets. "While you were bonding, I intercepted communications from Earth Command. They're using our desertion as an excuse to expand military operations in this sector. They're claiming we stole dangerous alien weapons technology." The tablet displayed battle plans and troop movements. "The Coalition is positioning for a major offensive against frontier worlds," she continued. "They're provoking the Empire deliberately." "A war would devastate the frontier planets," James said, knowledge flowing through him. Millions of innocents caught in the middle. There's more, Tala said grimly. I found references to something called Project Luminance. Earth Command has recovered fragments of luminary technology over the years. They're trying to weaponize it, just like the Empire did. James walked to the galaxy map at the center of the chamber. With a gesture, he brought up current political boundaries. Coalition territory in blue, Empire in red, with contested frontier worlds in yellow between them. I have 3 choices, he said, his voice steady. First, we could stay hidden here, safe in this sanctuary, while the galaxy tears itself apart. The knowledge would be preserved, but not used. Tala shook her head. That's not really a choice. Second, I could reveal ourselves to the Coalition, offer them the technology, try to convince them to use it peacefully. James sighed. But based on these battle plans, I doubt they'd listen. They'd take the blood key by force if necessary, Tala agreed. The third option is the hardest, James said quietly. I activate the dormant luminary network. Broadcast the truth to all species. Reveal what the Empire did, what Earth Command plans to do. It would cause chaos, but it might prevent the coming war. Keeper's hologram flickered. I must warn you. Activating the network will reveal this sanctuary's location. The hunters will come. James closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his decision. In his mind, he saw the alien woman's face as she died, the trust in her eyes as she passed him the pendant. There's another problem, Tala added. Even if we broadcast the truth, why would anyone believe us? We're labeled deserters, traitors. 1 human soldier and a xenolinguist against 2 galactic powers. James touched the pendant, now back around his neck. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. We need allies, he said, a plan forming in his mind. The frontier settlements, resistance groups within the Coalition, subjugated species within the Empire. They've all suffered under the current powers. A coalition of the forgotten. Tala said, understanding dawning on her face. James nodded, decision made. Keeper, begin preparations to activate the network. And show me how to access the terraforming systems. The terraforming network hasn't been active for centuries, Keeper warned. Not as weapons, James said firmly. As proof of what the luminary truly stood for. The sanctuary hummed with energy as James stood before the central console. The pendant no longer hung around his neck. It was placed in a circular depression at the center of the controls, pulsing with bright blue light. Broadcasting will begin in 3 minutes, Keeper announced. The network is powering up. Through the crystal windows, James and Tala watched as hidden satellites throughout the galaxy activated for the first time in centuries. The luminary communication network had remained dormant, waiting for a guardian to awaken it. First signals detected approaching from Empire space, Tala reported, monitoring the sensor array. Their fastest ships, and Coalition forces are not far behind. James nodded, his face calm despite the danger. We knew they would come. The past month had been a blur of activity. Using knowledge from the blood key, they had made contact with resistance groups on a dozen frontier worlds. Secret messages had been sent to sympathetic officers within the Coalition. Even some within the Empire who questioned their leaders had joined their cause. Transmission ready, Keeper said. What message shall we send? James touched the console. The knowledge of generations flowed through him, the peaceful history of the luminary, their fall at the hands of the Empire, and their hope for the future. The truth, he said simply, all of it. With a thought, he activated the broadcast. Across thousands of worlds, communication systems were suddenly filled with images of luminary history. The evidence of the Empire's deception was laid bare for all to see. Corrupted technology, manufactured conflicts, centuries of lies. Second phase beginning, James announced. Tala, are you ready? She nodded, determination in her eyes. The coordinates are set. If this works. James closed his eyes, connecting deeply with the blood key. He reached out to the terraforming network. the Luminary's greatest achievement. Massive machines hidden on desolate planets stirred to life. Empire ships entering visual range, Keeper warned. Coalition fleet approaching from the opposite vector. Let them come, James said. They need to see this. Outside, the first Empire warships appeared. Weapons charge. Coalition vessels followed, establishing a blockade on the other side. Both forces transmitted demands for surrender. James ignored them all. With a final command, he activated the terraforming system. Across the galaxy, on 12 dead worlds ravaged by centuries of warfare, a miracle began. Barren soil erupted with new growth. Poisoned atmospheres cleared. Waters long toxic ran clean again. In the space of minutes, planets that had been written off as casualties of war blossomed with new life. Every ship, every planet, every being with access to communication channels witnessed the transformation. It was irrefutable proof that luminary technology had never been meant for destruction, only renewal. They've stopped firing, Tala said in wonder. Both fleets are holding position. The communication channels burst with messages from across the galaxy. People everywhere were witnessing the revival of dead worlds. A transmission came through from the Coalition flagship. Lieutenant Miller, this is Admiral Chen. We request a dialogue. Similar messages arrived from the Empire's commander. James smiled. Tell them both the same thing. The Luminary Sanctuary is open to all who come in peace. The pendant detached itself from the console and floated back to James. As he took it in his hand, he felt the presence of all the guardians who had come before him, including the alien woman who had trusted him with her people's legacy. What happens now? Tala asked, standing beside him. Now we build bridges, James said, looking out at the gathering ships. The Luminary weren't just peacekeepers. They were teachers, healers, explorers. They brought species together through understanding, not fear. He placed the pendant around his neck once more. Its blue glow merged with the new light in his eyes. One human soldier, one alien legacy, and a chance to heal rather than destroy. James turned to face the future. That's an inheritance worth protecting. Outside, as if in response to his words, ships from both fleets began to dock at the sanctuary. A new chapter was beginning.